This wonderful list is about to reveal a whopping 10 more facts about the Star Wars universe that have likely been lying dormant in your mind for a millennium, or a couple of years at least. So I am Gareth, this is What Culture Star Wars, and here are 10 more Star Wars facts you probably knew deep down. Number 10, Luke Skywalker asked 118 questions in the original trilogy. Even those who have only experienced one full viewing of the original Star Wars trilogy will have quickly come to the conclusion that the farm boy turned Jedi known as Luke Skywalker is a rather curious soul. During episodes 4 to 6, Luke can regularly be found inquiring about everything from the Force to who his real father is, acting as the audience surrogate for much of his time on screen in those first 3 flicks. So it likely won't come as too much of a surprise to discover that Mark Hamill actually ended up chucking out a grand total of 118 questions over the course of his appearances in A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. That's according to one meme on X/Twitter anyway, with Hamill himself actually spotting the fun fact and noting how the idea of a fan counting the amount of questions Luke asked made him smile. Not if they did it out loud though. That's just rude and irritating and probably ruined those movies for the entire audience, as Hamill put it. At a glance, it may seem like a hell of a number of Skywalker queries, but the more you think about it, the more you've likely always known this inquisitive icon was an almost bottomless pit of questions. Number 9, it doesn't really matter how you pronounce certain Star Wars names. Star Wars fans all over the planet have often found themselves squabbling over the correct way to pronounce certain names within this galaxy far, far away. Deep down, however, even the most passionate debaters of how to correctly say AT-AT or Han in this universe probably understand just how pointless these arguments actually are. Who really cares about the correct way to deliver those monikers and names of vehicles and weapons? Not George Lucas, that's for damn sure. Mark Hamill revealed that the creator of this game-changing franchise would often respond to the cast questions about how to say names like Leia and Chewbacca by just shrugging. Lucas simply didn't care all that much about how his actors chose to utter said words, noting how they would likely be pronounced in various ways in different parts of this galaxy. So the next time you find yourself bickering over whether it's AT-AT or AT-AT, remember the fact you've likely known the whole damn time. It doesn't bloody matter. Number 8, Don't Get Cocky was improvised. With Harrison Ford being responsible for the creation of one of the most iconic 2-word responses in cinema history, I know, it probably won't come as too much of a shock to hear that one of A New Hope's best quips came straight from the mind of the acting icon too. As revealed in an episode of the Russo Brothers Pizza Film School podcast, the source of many a glorious Star Wars fact, Mark Hamill again, explained to the gang how Ford sprinkled some of his magic into an episode 4 dogfight. Hamill was sat off camera delivering lines to the Han Solo star when Ford just decided to come out with the instantly iconic "Don't Get Cocky" after telling a young Luke, who had just taken out a TIE fighter, he'd done a great job. George Lucas wasn't exactly known for his ability to write believable dialogue for his many classic characters in this galaxy, so there's likely always been a part of you that assumed one of the coolest lines ever uttered by Han Solo on screen didn't actually come from the pen of the visionary director/writer. Now I've got a quick question for you. What is your favorite line in all of Star Wars history? You let me know in that comment section right down below. Number 7, a familiar voice returned as Ahsoka's mother in Tales of the Jedi. Those who have explored all parts of the Star Wars franchise will have no doubt spent many an hour blasting their way through the Star Wars Battlefront 2 story campaign. And there's also a strong chance those lovers of this ever-expanding universe will have taken in the gorgeously animated Tales of the Jedi series on Disney Plus too. What these folks may not have fully realized, however, is exactly how these two projects were secretly connected. During the first episode of Dave Filoni's dive into the lives of some of the prequel trilogy's most iconic Jedi, that life and death story focuses on a baby Ahsoka Tano being taken on her first hunt by her mother Pav T. Despite this being the debut of Tano's mom in the galaxy far, far away though, some likely still bizarrely felt her voice sounded a tad familiar. They probably just didn't completely understand why. Well, the reason is because the same actor who voiced Pav T here also brought Battlefront 2's Inferno Squad commander Iden Versio to life, with the brilliant Janina Gavankar joining the list of actors to have played multiple roles in this galaxy. So that explains why a part of you possibly felt like you'd already heard the voice of Ahsoka's mom before, even with the talented Gavankar skillfully adapting her accent slightly for the Togruta character. Number 6, Anthony Daniels was very much underneath beneath the plates during C-3PO's recent return. The first season of Ahsoka brought with it the welcome surprise return of yet another adored Star Wars figure, one who has been a part of this galaxy far, far away from the very beginning. With the hilarious protocol droid known as C-3PO only popping up for the one fantastic scene in Part 7, Dreams and Madness though, some fans had pondered whether Dave Filoni and co. had actually gone to the trouble of chucking the iconic plate onto the legendary Anthony Daniels for such a short appearance. Deep down though, they likely always knew the truth. There's still a ton of life left in the 77-year-old, and as revealed by Daniels himself on Instagram in the wake of that unexpected droid comeback, not only was he given the full Star Wars volume experience during his physical return to the part, he also received a standing ovation after he finally emerged from that iconic figure, as he put it. The Skywalker saga star has admitted in the past that there will come a day when someone else eventually takes over the beloved role, but judging from his superb performance in Ahsoka, that day is thankfully still a long, long way off. Oh, and just a quick thank you for giving this Star Wars video a watch today, and if you like what you see, then tap on that subscribe button, you lovely soul. Number 5, the X-Wing was inspired by a dart. It's been staring you in the face for decades, and there's even a chance you've subconsciously realized there was a connection between the Rebel Alliance's fighters and a dart whenever you were launching one at a board in your local. And that's precisely how the designer of the legendary X-Wing, Colin Cantwell, was given the inspiration to create the unmistakable space birds many moons ago. Feeling it needed to look alien but still fit in with the rest of the space opera unfolding on screen, the visual of a dart being thrown at a board within a pub, back before the first Star Wars had flown into theaters, gave him the OG idea, and Cantwell quickly set about forging the eternally cool spacecraft from there. You now have permission to shout "Red Leader standing by" before unleashing your darts during your next game at the bar. Number 4, Nabo was introduced into the galaxy far, far away long before Episode 1. It may have only made its official debut in a Star Wars movie in 1999's The Phantom Menace, but the absolutely gorgeous homeworld of Padme Amidala and Jar Jar Binks had its name uttered in the galaxy far, far away long before that. And with said Nabo moment coming in the middle of one of Return of the Jedi's funnier moments, you better believe this first reference to that glorious planet has likely been sitting somewhere within you since the first time you sat through Episode 6. As C-3PO converses with some Ewoks on Endor whilst Han Solo, Leia Organa and the gang attempt to find a way into the Empire's shield generator, the protocol droid can be heard using a familiar word just before one of the brave teddy bears nicks a speeder bike. Here 3PO replies to Wicket W. Warwick, "Nabo Aku Tak Tak," when told of his mate's reckless plan. Who knows, maybe it was this first use of the word that ultimately inspired George Lucas to use it as the name of one of the prequel's most important worlds. Or it could just be nothing more than a coincidence. Either way, if you experienced the original trilogy before the prequels were even a thing, you definitely heard about Nabo sometime before the planet itself actually arrived on screens. Number 3, Cal Kestis has an understandable fear of escape pods. There's a moment there in the middle of the Jedi Survivor chapter in Cal Kestis' video game story when this Order 66 survivor finds himself having to board an escape pod on the Lucrehulk ship. And while it'd be understandable for anyone to be a touch nervous about being shot out of a spacecraft at high speeds, if you'd already played the equally gripping Jedi Fallen Order game, you were probably aware in some way of the real reason Cal was panicking about the idea of getting in this pod. You see, back when the young Jedi was still training with his master Jaro Tapal as the Clone Wars reached their shocking end, the pair found themselves being targeted by clones on a Republic cruiser. And right when the two Force users were about to hop on an escape pod, Tapal was fatally wounded. He would then tragically pass away in Cal's arms not long after, with that traumatic moment before the Padawan crash-landed on Braca, understandably leaving Kestis with a decent amount of anxiety whenever he finds himself buckling up within an escape pod going forward. Fans of the Jedi games already knew deep down that Cal's life had been forever changed within one of these pods, even if they were simply too caught up in the survivor ride to catch this heartbreaking nod to his trauma during a first playthrough. Number 2, the real reason R2-D2 disobeys Luke's ship order. While on the subject of fans probably subconsciously knowing the real reason why certain Star Wars characters act in the way they do during their time in the galaxy far, far away, this next entry involves a little trip to Dagobah. When Luke Skywalker lands on the swamp planet and proceeds to look for Master Yoda in Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, the Jedi in training instructs his droid pal R2-D2 to stay in the ship. Refusing to listen to the lad from Tatooine though, this defiant astromech is ultimately seen following Luke around the planet. But the truth truth behind why R2 insists on staying by the young Skywalker's side is about as tragic as it gets, and it's definitely something fans of the prequel trilogy already knew deep down. Jumping back to the moment Anakin Skywalker touched down on the fiery world of Mustafar in Revenge of the Sith, Luke's father also told R2 to stay with the vehicle, and this would heartbreakingly be the final time that droid saw Anakin before he went full Vader. Possibly because he feared once again being abandoned by another Skywalker master, R2 had zero interest in obeying any orders to keep his ass parked in an X-Wing. Can't exactly blame him, can ya? Number 1, the secret Pirates of the Caribbean reference in the Clone Wars. Star Wars The Clone Wars fans were introduced to yet another interesting Weequay figure during the show's 4th season, with the pirate turned bounty hunter known as Kira Swan showing up in the box episode. And while folks were likely a little too busy worrying about how a disguised Obi-Wan Kenobi would make it through a deadly obstacle course alive, to really focus on the arrival of this particular alien being, that specific bounty hunter's name still probably rang a bell. Well, that's possibly because the name of Kira Swan is actually a little nod to another much-loved franchise by the name of Pirates of the Caribbean. One of the major characters in that series goes by the name of Elizabeth Swan, of course, and that figure also just so happened to be played by Keira Knightley. You know, the same Keira Knightley who popped up as Padme's handmaiden Sabe in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And if the tournament Swan was said to have already won twice also sounded a bit familiar, that's because the Obsidian Sphere was also a clever tribute to Captain Jack Sparrow's Black Pearl ship too. Folks watching the introduction of Swan and hearing about her accolades for the first time must have known deep down that both the bounty hunter's name and that tournament weren't just the result of randomly throwing a couple of cool sounding words together. And sure enough, they were very much included as a subtle yet respectful salute to the fictional pirates found riding the waves in our own galaxy not so far away. Did you enjoy these Star Wars facts that you probably knew deep down? Well, here's the prequel. Go and click on it and thank me later. Bye bye!